3 beautiful young girls bound, suffocated, and left in the cold silence of Washington's wilderness. Their father, the man who was supposed to protect them, vanished without a trace. No goodbye, no explanation, just the sound of sirens and a mother's scream echoing through the night. This is not just another crime story. This is a haunting case of the Decker sisters, a tragedy that has shattered a community, exposed deep cracks in our justice system, and triggered one of the largest manhunts in the Pacific Northwest. How does a father murder his children and disappear into thin air? And more importantly, why? What you're about to hear is the full story. From the bitter custody battle to the final campsite discovery, and the chilling search for a killer still on the run. If you're drawn to real, raw, and unsolved stories that deserve to be told, subscribe now, because this case isn't over, and we're just getting started. The sun was just beginning to dip beneath the jagged hills of Wenatchee, Washington, casting long shadows across the quiet suburb where Whitney Decker paced her living room. It was May 30th, 2025, a Friday, and her 3 daughters, Paityn, Evelyn, and little Olivia, were due back hours ago. Travis Decker, their father, had picked them up earlier for a supervised visitation. But now, as the clock ticked past 9 p.m., there was no sign of them. No messages, no calls, only the paralyzing quiet and the haunting absence of laughter that should have echoed through the house by now. Whitney had followed every court order since their bitter custody battle began. She had agreed to Travis's supervised visits, even though the thought of letting the girls go with him knotted her stomach every time. He had a temper. Everyone knew it, and while the court hadn't allowed overnight stays, she could never shake the feeling that something wasn't right. By 10 p.m., Whitney made the call. Her voice trembled as she spoke with the dispatcher. He's not answering. The girls were supposed to be home by 8. He's never done this before. That call set off a chain reaction. First local patrols, then state authorities. A manhunt had begun, and no one knew it yet. But the country was about to be shaken by one of the darkest tragedies Washington had seen in years. Travis Decker was no stranger to discipline. At least not in the way the military defined it. He had served in the Army, trained, conditioned, and hardened. But whatever structure the service had instilled in him had long since eroded. By 2025, he was jobless, homeless, and spiraling. Reports later revealed he'd been living out his white GMC Sierra, adrift on Washington's backroads, untethered from reality, and spiraling under the weight of untreated mental illness. Travis was supposed to be receiving mental health support, anger management, therapy, the works. But records confirmed he'd failed to comply with nearly every requirement. Diagnosed with borderline personality disorder, he had exhibited signs of instability for years. Still, the system gave him access to his children. And now, they were missing. Authorities canvassed the area, and within 24 hours issued a missing endangered person alert. But there was criticism, sharp, pointed criticism, about why no Amber Alert had gone out. Officials said the case didn't meet the criteria. But for Whitney and for the growing crowd of concerned citizens online, it felt like bureaucracy had once again failed to protect the most vulnerable. As dawn broke on June 2nd, a breakthrough. A hiker in the rugged wilderness near Rock Island Campground stumbled across something unsettling, a white GMC Sierra, parked awkwardly off the beaten path. Its tires sunk into the dirt. The truck's back was marked with 2 smeared handprints, stained dark with what looked like blood. Parked 17 miles up Icicle Road. It was in the middle of nowhere, exactly the kind of place someone goes when they don't want to be found. Officers from multiple agencies rushed to the scene. Inside the truck, they found blankets, children's car seats, a cooler, and a few personal belongings, including Travis's wallet. There was no sign of him. But just yards from the vehicle, down a steep embankment shrouded in pine and silence, search teams made a grisly discovery. The bodies of Paityn 9, Evelyn 8, and Olivia, 5, were found cold, lifeless, and cruelly discarded. Each girl had been bound at the wrists with zip ties, and each had a plastic bag secured around her head. The forensic pathologist would later confirm they had died from asphyxiation. There were signs the girls had fought, particularly Evelyn, the middle child, who was known for her stubbornness. But there was no escaping what had been done. Shock rippled across Wenatchee. The elementary school the girls attended, Lincoln Elementary, became a makeshift memorial overnight. Stuffed animals, hand-drawn pictures, flowers, and candles piled up in front of the gates. The community couldn't believe it. They were the kind of family everyone recognized. Paityn had a knack for poetry. Evelyn wanted to be a veterinarian. Olivia just loved to dance. Now, all three were gone, and Travis Decker had vanished into thin air. What began as a missing persons investigation had become a triple homicide, and Travis Decker was now the most wanted man in Washington state. The Chelan County Sheriff's Office issued a $20,000 reward for information leading to his capture. The manhunt spanned across state lines, involving the FBI, U.S. Marshals, SWAT, and Homeland Security. But there was no sign, no footprints, no fresh leads. Investigators returned to the campsite again and again, trying to reconstruct the scene. They found zip ties scattered in the underbrush. The plastic bags used in the murders were of a common variety. Travis had set up a tent nearby, and while it was clear he had spent time with the girls, perhaps even made it feel like a camping trip, there was no evidence of a struggle in the tent itself. Was it premeditated, or had something snapped? Court documents revealed haunting details. Travis had been discharged from the National Guard after facing disciplinary action. He had lost stable housing and moved from place to place. His relationship with Whitney had grown toxic, riddled with accusations, protective orders, and court dates. And yet, none of it had barred him from seeing his daughters. At a June 3rd press conference, Chelan County Sheriff Mike Morrison held back visible emotion as he addressed reporters. "These were innocent children," he said. "They had their whole lives ahead of them. We are doing everything we can to bring Travis Decker to justice." But every day he remained free, anxiety grew. How does a man with no home, no support, and 3 counts of first-degree murder just disappear? Theories swirled online. Some believed Decker had taken his own life somewhere deep in the mountains. Others feared he had a survivalist background, skills that allowed him to vanish into the Pacific Northwest wilderness without a trace. After all, he knew how to live off the grid. He'd trained for years in isolation, and if he had planned this, and the evidence suggested he had, then he might have been planning an escape too. Whitney, now the mother of 3 murder daughters, made a brief statement through a family spokesperson. "There are no words. I want him found. I want him to answer for what he did to our babies." The rage was palpable. Across social media, the hashtag Justice for the Decker Sisters began trending. Parents, activists, and survivors demanded answers. Why had the court allowed him visitation? Why hadn't law enforcement acted sooner? And most critically, where was Travis Decker? As of June 4th, the search continues. Drones equipped with heat-sensing cameras sweep the forest daily. K-9 units comb through dense brush. Highway patrol watches for the white flash of Decker's face on digital billboards. The area around Rock Island Campground remains cordoned off, but every passing hour brings fewer leads. The only certainty is what he left behind. 3 daughters who never came home, a town blanketed in grief, and a mother whose life will never be the same. Some say Travis Decker is hiding in plain sight. Others believe he's long gone, deep in the Cascades, armed, paranoid, and waiting. But the truth, like the air in those final hours of the campground, hangs heavy. It lingers in the quiet rustle of pine needles and the icy current of the Icicle River. It echoes in the memorials at Lincoln Elementary and in the unanswered questions that stretch through Wenatchee like shadows at dusk. How do you grieve when there's no one to blame within reach? How do you rebuild when the story is still unfolding? And how do you sleep, knowing the man who took your children has simply vanished? As the search for Travis Decker continues, the unanswered questions grow heavier with each passing day. How could man entrusted with his daughter's safety commit such an unspeakable act? Where is he now? Hiding in the dense wilderness, blending into the shadows of society, or worse, plotting his next move? What failures in the system allowed this tragedy to unfold, and how many warning signs were ignored? For the Decker family, justice feels agonizingly out of reach. For the community, a deep wound remains unhealed. And for all of us watching, the chilling truth is that the story is far from over. What will it take to find Travis Decker? Will the girls' voices finally be heard through the silence? Stay with us as we continue to unravel the dark mysteries behind the Decker sisters' heartbreaking case, searching for answers in the shadows. Make sure you're subscribed and hit the notification bell, because the next chapter will reveal more than you ever expected. The hunt for truth has only just begun.